Once upon a dream, double the fun. Then she let Castle Aurora, ball-arranging Princess Aurora, take over, and a smooth look of cool hauteur come over her face. I shan't even dignify that with a response. She rose as primly as she could, resisting the urge to push the pin needles back into place as if she were making her bed, Briar Rose style. Philip sighed dramatically and didn't get up, contenting himself with watching her. She kept her back to him. Then Philip came striding into the clearing, a string of fish over his shoulder. I was trying to think of some way of apologizing, but there doesn't seem to be any flowers here. In fact, there's not a lot of anything here, and I figured you'd be sick of porridge too, and... He stopped, staring at the angry couple. Aurora Rose stared at him. Philip on the ground stared at him. Philip with the fish dropped the fish and immediately drew his sword. "Rose, get back," Philip on the ground said, leaping up. "It's another one of Maleficent's demons." "He's the demon," Philip with the fish said, cheeks filled with anger. "Right," Ground Philip said, casually drawing his own sword. "Who was sleeping here next to Rose all night while you just happened to come walking in?" "I got up 2 hours ago," Philip said. "I couldn't sleep because of our fight." "Really? Because I slept just fine," Ground Philip said with a knowing smile. "And somehow she did. Right through your getting up and... What is it that you're doing? Fishing? Really?" Aurora Rose looked back and forth between them uncertainly. The fish thing was strange, despite his obvious tiring of porridge. Did Princess even know how to fish? "I like fishing," Philip protested. "Even Roman emperors fished, to relax." "Huh, now you know he's the demon," Ground Philip said, laughing. "I'm terrible at Latin, you know that." That was true. But was Ground Philip acting? Not like Philip? But then who was Philip, besides a liar? "Wait, hush," she said, thinking hard. They both waited for the same patient, expectant expression. "What's the name of your horse?" she said slowly. "Samson," they answered at the same time. Ground Philip shrugged. Fish Philip glared. "All right, what..." She dug deep into memories that she had only recently been uncovered. "What kind of flower did you pick and give me the day we met?" "Jonquil," said Ground Philip. "I don't know," Fish Philip said, exasperated. "I don't know the names of flowers. It was tiny and yellow and smelled pretty. Like you." "Nice," Ground Philip said, rolling his eyes. "Real poetic." She frowned. That seemed like a mean thing for the otherwise good-natured Philip to say. She tried to think logically. Something she now knew was difficult in the dream. Maleficent was inside her head and able to summon an entire world out of her thoughts and memories. The evil fairy knew everything about Aurora Rose, and so probably did her servants. But she didn't know everything about Philip, not the things that had happened before he met the princess. Tell me your most important childhood memory," she said finally. Fish Philip spoke first. "My father gave me my first sword, a wooden one, on my 3rd birthday. I named it Cat, because what I really wanted was a cat." And Ground Philip threw his hands up. "You could make up anything," he said with an exasperation. "I could make it up anything. Rose wouldn't know the truth. Sure, I had a sword when I was 3 and named it Cat. I also kissed a dairymaid when I was 13, next to the fire in the kitchen. I absolutely did it, but it's also the sort of thing any prince, any boy, could be reasonably expected to do. Is it true? Can you prove it?" Fish Philip frowned. Real hate began to burn in his eyes. "I did kiss a dairymaid when I was 13, but it was outside, near the cows." "See?" Ground Philip said. She bit her lip. He was right. There was any connection to Philip in the real world she could draw on. Something they both knew somehow. She in the forest and he in his castle, or in the Thorn Castle. "Your father," she said. "King Hubert. Tell me about him." Both Philips looked surprised. Ground Philip shrugged again. "Pompous, loud, bossy." "Show some respect," Fish Philip growled. "He's still my father." "What did he look like? Really look like? His face?" she pressed. "Old," Ground Philip quipped. Fish Philip raised his sword. "Enough, I said." "Please, use this as an excuse to attack me," Ground Philip spat, "because you can't describe him at all, you fake." He readied his own sword. Fish Philip sprang forward, beating the other Philip's weapon aside with a clang that rang out disturbingly among the ancient trees. Clouds of tiny birds, high up, exploded from the leaves and blew away. Both Philips were fast, very fast. They were extremely skilled swordsmen, clearly trained by a master. They were perfectly matched, obviously. Neither could gain the upper hand, and each trick and tactic one came up with, the other had already thought about. Parry, spin, lunge, leap, surprise attack at the legs. It was actually quite beautiful. If it hadn't been such a dangerous situation, she would have enjoyed watching them. But she found herself drawing on her own sword. She would not be unprepared, no matter who won. After a few minutes, the twins separated, breathing heavily. Neither had drawn blood. "You're well trained, demon," said one Philip. "As are you, demon," said the other, giving the first a little salute. She didn't know which one was Fish Philip and which one was Ground Philip anymore. They clashed again, more furiously this time. One drew blood on the other side, the other delivered a painful seeming blow to the flat of a sword to the other head. Aurora Rose winced with each one. Finally, panting, they separated again. "Here's the thing," said Philip on the left, facing her. "There's no way you can trust either of us. Maleficent's magic is too strong and perfect." "And here's the other thing," the second Philip said with an arch look at his twin. "Why would you trust either one of us? You've already seen that the real Philip, whomever it is, me, by the way, it's me, you lying hell spawn. Whatever. You've already seen that the real Philip can't be trusted anyway. I lied to you, just like you said. Despite falling in love with you, I could just as easily lie to you again. For good reasons," he added quickly, seeing the look on her face. "It could be for your own safety, or because it's too dangerous for us to be together, or whatever. How well do you really know me? Would you ever be able to trust me again? Now that you know I lied to you?" She put a hand to her head. The other Philip looked sick, seeing the logic behind his twin's words and where it would go. But he didn't protest. "For your own safety, for the safety of this quest, for the good of all the people who are depending on you, it would really be best if you went on alone." Aurora Rose felt a pain as great as the wound of a sword at these words, an invisible sword at her heart. It was the truth. And hadn't she always known that? She was always alone. She would always be alone. She was only one she could trust, in both her memories. Whether she was hiding in the giant maze of the Thorn Castle, or looking for something to do among the wild animals of the forest, or lying on her princess bed, hoping Liana would stay away, everything had always come down to just her. The other Philip looked pained at the words. "But I love you," he said desperately. "I want to be with you and protect you and help you." "No, I do," the first Philip said bleakly. "All those things. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's what's best." She knew she couldn't delay. If she did, she would be stuck here forever, trying to decide. Another Maleficent trap. She turned to go, hoping she would hear the two boys begin their inevitable fighting again, clinging away in the forest of her mind forever. Or until she woke up. "I stole my mother's pearl earring," a Philip suddenly called out. She closed her eyes and kept going. "I stole it because it was pretty. That's all. Later when she was dead and they found it, everyone asked if I stole it because I wanted a memory of her, and I said yes, even though I just wanted it because it was pretty, and it was when she was still alive. But this way everyone was nice to me and was forgiving, and everyone felt bad for me." She couldn't stop herself from turning around. What a weird thing for Philip to say. The other Philip thought so too. He looked at the first one with disgust. "Why would you tell her that about us?" But the first Philip wasn't done yet. "When I was 10, when I was way too old not to know better, I told my sister Maria that she was prettier than Bridget, in front of Bridget." The Philip who spoke looked sick and racked with guilt. The princess gripped her sword tighter, but moved closer. "Once I caught a mouse and put it in my room with my cat and watched the cat play with it until it was dead. It was horrible and I wept for days after, and I went to confession about it, but I did it. I did it because I wanted to see what would happen." "Sure, all right," the other Philip said nervously. "Are we saying all this stuff now because I can do it too? I don't know why you'd want her to tell you all this. I wet my bed until I was 13. Aurora Rose and the other Philip looked at him in shock. "I wet my bed until I was 13, Philip continued a little hysterically. "Not all the time, but on many nights my father was angry and the chambermaid was sworn to secrecy, and they whipped me and told me I was terrible, bringing shame to our name and lineage. Royal princes don't act that way. Royal princes do not wet their beds, but I did. Nobody else knows any of this. No one. I'm telling you because I love you and I trust you with all my secrets, good and bad. I want you to know that you can trust me too. I know I lied to you, but I swear I will tell you anything from here on out. All the bad stuff and all the good stuff too. He paused, looking bleak and weary. Leave now. For the good of your kingdom and for your own safety, just know that if you succeed, if we ever meet again, I will never, ever lie to you about anything ever again, and I will spend the rest of my life doing whatever I can to make you forgive me. The other Philip opened his mouth to say something, which was the opportunity she took to drive her sword through his stomach. The look on his face was human and terrible. Surprise, hurt, horror. His hands came around the shaft as blood began to flow down it, as if he could pull it out and make anything better. Strange noises came out of his mouth. She staggered back, horrified by the mistake she had made. And then the blood turned black, and the noises turned to hissing. His body shivered and began something dark and not really there, snake-like and transparent. He vibrated and trembled and shivered. Finally he fell to the ground like all the others. The remaining Philip watched silently, his cheeks white. It must be a horrible thing to watch yourself die, Aurora Rose thought. But he recovered himself and strode forward, giving the thing a coup de grace, a quick death the demon certainly didn't deserve. Then he dropped his sword, turned to the princess, wrapped her in his arms, and hugged her so tightly it almost hurt. She didn't say anything. There was too many things to talk about. How she had figured out it was really him, how she didn't forgive him for lying before, how he wasn't always the perfect prince he seemed to be. How she would in private, for the rest of her lives, no matter what happened, remind him of the things he had said that day. Just because. How she somehow just assumed she would know him for the rest of their lives, forever. But she had also just killed something that looked a whole lot like a real person when she stabbed him through the innards. That image replayed itself again and again in her mind. What if she had been wrong? So she stayed silent and let herself be held.